Today we are going to be learning about CSS fonts, and I'm going to be teaching you how they work and what they are. So let's get started right in with CSS fonts. I apologize for no videos last week. We had a bunch of power outage and everything going on, but hopefully now I'll be able to upload some videos. So today is essentially going to be CSS fonts, like I said at the beginning, and there are pretty much two ways to classify it. CSS fonts. So there's two family names, I guess you can call it. The first things first is the generic family. The generic families are pretty much groups of font families with a similar look. They're often categories of different types of font families such as serif and monospace. A font family is then a specific font such as Times New Roman and Arial. Each font is associated with a generic family. Arial is associated with sans-serif and Times New Roman is associated with serif. So serif and sans-serif are both two font families. So serifs are usually the fonts that have like the small lines at the end of some characters. Hopefully it will be shown on the screen. If not, then I don't know what to say. But yeah, it should be on the screen, hopefully. And then sans-serif is pretty much the opposite of serif. It's just letter, it doesn't have any extra ticks at the end of some characters. Just remember that the sans means without. Sans always means without. But anyway, let me get rid of this and then we're going to pretty much do what we're talking. So the first things first is that we are simply just going to do, I guess you can say, a simple sans-serif, or a simple way of how you can do the font. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to implement the CSS that you need. So in order to do this, we always need to start off with the style. Always, always, always. Start off with the style. What am I doing? Okay, got you. Okay, after the style, we then got our selector. So let's say p.sans-serif. That looks good. We'll do that. And then from there, we can just use the font family. We need to use the font family attribute to determine the font. So right there, font family. Unopen like that. In order to code fonts like this, we need to add the font family property within the CSS. Sometimes browsers will not recognize some specific fonts. So in here, I'm going to pretty much be putting more than one font. Like this. So right here I have listed two types of fonts. Pretty easy, pretty simple. I do this because, well, I'm pretty sure a lot of people do this, and it's important to do this because of the fact that sometimes browsers won't recognize some specific fonts. So in case that happens, if it doesn't recognize the first font, then it will go to the second font. If it doesn't recognize that, then it will go to the last one. And the last one's a little bit different because we're going to put a generic family. If you remember what a generic family is, it's something like serif or sans-serif, and it's a group of font families. It's just a group of fonts. That's what a generic family is. It's a group of fonts such as Arial, Helvetica, Times New Roman, etc. So that was good. Let's end it there, and that is how the CSS is going to work. So from now we need to implement the text. So we just simply do a body, and then p, and then class. Let's make it sans-serif. Remember that since we're putting the dot sans-serif, we need to include it because it's a class. So, just like that. Oh my god, what's going on? And then simply put whatever text you want. Since Arial is a common text, I'm just going to switch them up. Arial like that, and sans-serif. Okay, like that. Let's save it and let's reload. And then you see right here, it does it. And it says my name in the Helvetica font. So that's pretty much how it works. So what it does is that the browser is going to recognize the first font. The first font I put was Helvetica, so it recognized that right away. In case it didn't recognize it, it would go to Arial. And if it didn't recognize that, then it would randomly generate a font from the font family sans-serif. So that is how that works. And then here we included the class, and then we did it. And bam, it worked like that without any flaws. Keep in mind that our selector doesn't have to be a generic family. It can also be a font family. So if I did something like p.impact, for example, and then I went right here and I made that impact like that, you would see that it still works. The same thing happens. I believe so. Like that. 1 second. Okay. So yeah, you pretty much get the gist. And yeah, so what it's going to do from there is that now we need to change the class, make that impact, save it, and reload. There, it should work now. So as you see from right here, we put in the impact font. So my main point is that we don't have to put the generic family as a selector. We can put the impact right here instead. So it can be a font family or a generic family. Nevertheless, it's still going to work. So the font style property determines the style of the text. So there are 3 values. There are the normal, there's the italic, and there's the oblique. By values, I mean what comes after. So like there's always the property and then the value. So like this is the property and this is the value. Once again, just want to recap what we learned in CSS simple selectors. So from there, we can just pretty much do font style. So let me press enter. Font style. And then from here, let's just say oblique. So like I said, there's 3 values. There's the normal, which is when it's shown normally. Italic is when it's shown in italics, and oblique is when the text is kind of leaning, I guess you can say. So as you see, since we put oblique, the text is leaning. If we did italic, like that, okay, something is, okay, yeah, that's italic. And then if we did normal, it would just make it normal like that. So that's how the font style works. Those are the 3 types of values. So that's that. We could try something a little bit different as making the class like this. So let's say we made that p.normal, and then from here we can just get rid of this. And then we can just try and name this as normal. Put our class name as normal. And then reload it. And as you see, it gives a normal font, normal text. And then we make this oblique. And then we can do that. And then from here, same thing as usual. And then from there, just save it, reload. Easy, simple. And then there's italic, but I think you kind of get the gist. So that's pretty much how that works. So the normal is just normal text. Italic italicizes the text. And oblique gives it a little lean to the text. The font weight property determines the boldness of a specific size and how much bold you want it. There are many values we can put in for this. First is we have the simple keyword values. Then we have 2 similar values to the keyword values. And then finally we actually have the keyword values. The higher the value, the more bold it becomes. The values go by hundreds all the way to 900. 100 is the lightest, 900 is the boldest. So I'm going to demonstrate all of those. So from here, let me just put normal. Okay, and then that's good. Let me go font weight. Let's make it 900 to show you the maximum. And then let's make this right here normal. And I think we're good. Save it. Let's reload it. As you see here, we made it 900, so it became really, really bold. If we made it like about a 500, you would see that it would start getting less bolder. So that is one way to do it. We then have the keyword values. So let's say we have normal. Right here I'm just talking to you about the possible combinations of how you can do it. So the possible combinations of what you could put as your values for the font weight. You can do whatever suits you. I'm just showing all of them. So let's say if we put bold. As you see, it gets a little bit bolder. So those are kind of some predefined keyword values. And then we also have lighter. And then we have bolder. Let's save that and then reload, and that gets bold. But honestly, for me, I prefer it to be a number. So from 100 all the way to 900, I'm gonna put 800, and that looks good. So that's pretty much how that works. Those are the 3 types of values that you can put: a number value, a similar value, and a keyword value is what I like to call it. And then we have the font variant property. What the font variant property simply does is that it determines whether we should put the text in caps or not. So whether we should do it in caps or not. So let's say we did something like p.small. Let's say we made the class small. And then we made the font variant small caps. Oh, let me do that. And then let's make this small. And then from there, let's save it and then reload. What that's going to simply do is that it's going to give the text, and it's going to give it in small caps. So it's going to make all the letters uppercase, but it's going to still look like they're in lowercase. I'm pretty sure you get the gist, but that's how it works. So just once again, just a quick side note, being able to manage the text size is pretty important in web design. Be sure to not make the paragraphs and don't make them look bigger than the headings. So it's important to use the proper HTML text like the headings. Just a side note, you can do it like that. The font size value can be absolute or a relative size. So now we're going to talk about the font size. The font size property determines the size of the text. Be sure you're able to manage the text size. It's really important. Don't make the paragraphs, make them bigger so it looks like headings. So I think you know what I mean. So you make a bigger paragraph so that it looks like a heading. That will just confuse you. So be sure to make the proper HTML tags. So like using like a heading. So before I do that, let me quickly change it. Like that. Okay, from there we're good. And then we can do it in either absolute size or relative size. Absolute size sets it to a specific size. It doesn't allow us to change it in all browsers. And it's useful when the physical size of the output's known. Relative size is something that's relative to surrounding elements, and it allows us to change it based on the browser. So it's important. If you don't specify a font size, it'll just give the default size. Like in paragraphs, it's going to be 16 pixels. So let me show you how this is going to work. So let me make it H2 for this example. And then let's make the font size 30 pixels. Once again, I'm using headings. I don't want to confuse paragraphs as headings. Just, yeah, on a side note, just don't do that. And then, yeah, I guess it's pretty good from there. Let me just make that H2. And that with H2. Just like that. And then from there, we're good to go. Save it, reload. And as you see, it gives it 30 pixels. So the font size the font size property simply determines the size of the text. We can do the size in pixels, EM, centimeters, whatever. I just prefer pixels. The bigger the pixels, bigger the size, obviously. Be sure you can differentiate the elements between paragraphs and headings. There are other ways to set it, but I prefer pixels. Then finally, we have something called the shorthand property. This is honestly a lot similar to the other ones I mentioned, like border, background property. What you essentially do is that you can do font, and then you can do 30 pixels, and then let's say we did, and then let's say Helvetica, and then we did what's good, sans-serif, like that. Pretty easy, pretty simple. Just do that, and then we'll just apply all our changes like that. So that's pretty much a shortcut. It combines all the stuff we learned, and it combines all the properties together. So instead of simply saying font weight, font size, all that kind of stuff, we can just combine them all into font and create a shorthand property Sorry for the hiccups, guys. Not recording at a good time. Hope you could still understand the video. If you did, it'd be kindly appreciated to hit that subscribe button if you're new. Also, follow my Instagram at Kids Coding Club. Check out my website at kidscoding.com. I know it's a lot of stuff. Links in the description below if you're interested. And I'll see you guys in the next video.